podcast. Make fire. Welcome to Knitting from the Little Shed. I'm your host, Holly B. Welcome to the Little Shed. It's pretty cold outside today and it's windy, but we're nice and warm by the fire. I hope you're having the best week. I did see a little glimmer of spring yesterday in the sky. The sun was out and it was that warm feeling that the sun gives you when it's just about to flip over to spring. So grateful for that. But today it's back to being really cold and windy. We have a ton of snow. So I think we're going to have snow well into the month of March, which I think is just a good excuse for staying in and knitting. Now, if I could just do that knitting part, that would be good. What's been taking up my time? This book baby has been taking up my time. And so I launched the book on Valentine's Day at a local cafe, and it was incredible. My community came out. People I hadn't seen in so long came out to wish me well and to send this book out into the world. And I'm so grateful. And if I didn't mention it before, I did put a little tiny bit of knitting in here as when they're on their trip, the one girl pulls out her knitting. So it's in there. So that applies to this absolutely 100%. Which was incredible, but I crashed hard on the couch for 2 days afterwards. So I'm looking forward to some warmer temperatures and getting out with the dogs and knitting outside instead of in here. But I'm always grateful to be by the fire as well. I was reading a newsletter today on Substack, and she mentioned sock blanks and that she couldn't find any anywhere anymore. And I guess it was all the rage all of a couple years ago. What is a sock blank? So it looks to be, she only had one photo. It looked to be some sort of already knit piece, but it was all folded. But she didn't really say what she did with that. And yes, I could Google it, and maybe I will, but I'm curious. Do you know what a sock blank is? Do you make socks out of this blanket? Inquiring minds want to know. I did drive my son back to Toronto, and while I'm in the city, it's always fun to check out new shops. Scary though, because acquisitions really do, that's a thing, right? And it's difficult not to go into a yarn store and not want to support them. So I may have purchased a few things. For today, I would love to show you this. This is not a knitting piece. However, it could be. It could be my new notebook for knitting. But it was at, it's a art supply store called DeSerres. And I think it was probably started in Quebec somewhere. But I mean, check out this cover. Isn't that incredible? So I could definitely make this into a knitting logbook, right? So I just wanted to share that with you because I saw that and I thought, Holly, you have 20 notebooks on the shelf already that are blank that could be used. And I'm like, but those eyes. So that came home. And then I went to Orillia, Ontario on my way back to the north. I stopped in to drop off a few books at Manticore Books, and they were gracious enough to take some of the copies of my novel on consignment, so I thought that was really kind. I got to stop in at Mariposa Market, which, oh my gosh, if you've never been and you live in this part of town or part of the province, you must go. I mean, they don't call them Texas donuts for no reason. And also their tuna sandwich on a croissant, bought two, ate them on the way home. but there is a little store on the main street, La Haye Crafts, that I stopped in, and there were two young clerks working there, and they were just such a delight to speak with. Now, this shop is kind of like an old retail store that we used to have here when I was a young girl called Stedman's. I don't know if anybody ever remembers that one, but it's like a little bit of everything. So they had every craft you can think of. And yes, I did make a few purchases. Um, I don't know, these just appealed to me. They're called Knit Pro. I'm not really up on all my labels for knitting yet, but I mean, for some, yes. But these are a metal double pointed needles, 2.5. And because I'm noticing that when I'm knitting socks and I get to the heel, I want to switch over to some double pointed needles instead of these 9-inch circular. So I think it's probably the color that got me on this one, this nice bright red. Zing, of course. See, catchy name. I bought some black larger than seed beads. So these are Czech seed beads, but they're a size 6 because I'm making some little bracelets that say dog mom and dog cat because I am going to be at a vendor show this weekend. It's called the Robert Plant, or Plant, I think in French, Greenhouses in Navan, Ontario, where I will have my novel for sale. And so I'd like to have a little bit of merch on the side so that I can raise a few extra dollars for the local shelter. And we'll have to find out what local shelters are in the Ottawa area so that we can donate that money. Next, actually staying in with the La Haye Crafts, the young clerk that was winding this yarn for me forgot to put in the little slip of paper. But I mean, it's a fingering yarn, it's hand dyed, it's beautiful. And I noticed that when he was winding it on the classic antique yarn winder, that at one point the yarn let go, and I thought, and I was watching from a distance, and I thought, uh-oh, he broke the yarn, but I wasn't going to say anything. And then the other person who was there said, oh, like, did it break? And he goes, no, that's because this company creates the skein in 2 pieces so that when you wind it, it's ready for a pair of socks. Genius. Thank you for doing that. I love that. So I'm still working on my socks. I'm still working on my cardigan. I wish I had more to show you. And I think after we do our little talkie talk, I will go and model one of the sweaters that I made last summer. And I haven't even worn it yet. So I would love to show something of a finished piece to you. When I did pop into that bookstore, I did pick up a couple of fun book merch and adorable vintage books, bookmarks. Because again, I don't have, 100 of them in the house, but I can't find any of them. So I thought that these were appropriate. This here is interesting. I mean, not the first time I see it, but it's called a pen pouch. And so your pens go in here, and then you wrap this around your day timer. And I think it's super cute, and the color is so much fun, and I'd love to knit a pair of socks in this color. I am still on a paper calendar. I have tried to shift over to digital, just solely digital. I just can't. I have to have the paper and the digital. It's the way my brain works. I have tried so many times. There's something tactile about writing it in a notebook that embeds it in my memory as well. So for me, it's just what I have to do. So I don't have anything knitting to show you, but I will. I promise I will. It's just been a really busy week with the book launch, and so wonderful. People have been so gracious and kind with their reviews. And I have a whole bunch of thank you cards to put together this weekend before I head to the show in Ottawa. My plan is to spotlight some of the stores, and so I do plan to do that in the upcoming weeks. In fact, tomorrow I'm going to be popping into Sturgeon Falls at Buttons, and I'm going to ask her if we can do something together maybe a collaboration. So stay tuned for some of those. I'm also contemplating Knit City Toronto and whether or not I'm going to attend. I did attend a couple years ago, and I don't know if it was just where I was at with the knitting. Maybe it was because of, people were in full swing again after the pandemic, but I don't know, I just felt a little out of place. And maybe it was just that it was overwhelming. There are a lot of people, and you have to have patience, and these individuals want their yarn. But I am going, if I go back, that is, I'm going with a different lens. I have the podcast now, and I would love to interview some people. Maybe that's a time to make some connections and do some networking, because I would love to have some interviews on this show, not just me talking, but also interviewing the makers out there and those who are brave enough to have storefronts and brick and mortar stores. So that's something I'm looking towards. I'm still building this channel. I'm a baby podcaster at this point with this channel. So stick with me, bear with me, and things will evolve. Thank you if you're still with me at this point, and wish me luck. Have an awesome day. Bye for now.